Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. I promised you a new video before New Year's. So where we left off at was that kings and pawns have special moves. The special move for the king is castling, and there are about 5 things about the pawns that I need to teach you. First, about the way they capture, all the way to special capturing moves and other things, about promotion and things like that. So I think first I'm going to start with the pawns capturing. So as you already know, on your first move of the pawns, of each individual pawn, you can decide to move it 1 or 2 spaces. So let's just start a game where we move it 2. Okay? And say the king, say the black does the same thing. Now here's the thing about pawns. As you know, all pieces, including the knight, capture by landing on the square that the opponent is being occupied. In other words, if I wanted to capture black's pawn, I have to be able to land on that piece. However, pawns don't capture that way. Pawns move straight forward, 1 or 2 spaces on the first move, 1 move after that, 1 space after that, but they do not capture that way. That's the odd thing about the pawns. See, you're going to get the whistle blow. Excuse me. Pawns instead capture as a bishop captures. So a pawn moves forward vertically and never backward. But as you can see on the bottom right of your screen, if you play this in HD, it says white threatens to win material. Black can now capture this pawn. That's the way pawns capture. They capture at a diagonal, much like the bishop does. Okay? They cannot capture forward. They can only capture diagonally. And then after that, their trek is always forward again. Okay? Never backward. Alright? So, supposedly, if black did not capture that pawn, say he moved something else, perhaps he moved another pawn here. Okay? I now have the chance, if I want to capture black's pawn. And then he can capture me in turn. And again, these 2 pawns are now blocking each other. So you can block pawns with pawns. Okay? I just wanted to make sure you understood that. So, in addition to that, pawns have another unique trick. And I'm actually going to show you a game to show you that, but I'm not going to show you that game until after I complete this, showing you how to castle. So let's go ahead and move pawns up. Let's not move that one this time. Let me move this one up. No, let me let me move this one up and make black do something else. Okay. And I decide to move it again. 1 more space. Now, after what I just told you about capturing, pawn capturing, you know that if black moves his pawn forward 1 space, I'd be able to capture it. Same goes for this one, right? And if he moves this one, that's just blocking. I can't capture that. But what if black decides to move 2 spaces, like he's allowed to do? Okay? First, I want you to notice that white's pawn is now on the 5th rank. Okay? So if black decides to move his pawn 2 spaces to try to avoid the capture, here's a good one for you. I can still capture that pawn. I can pretend that black only moved the 1 space and capture en passant, in passing in French. Okay? Now, that only happens when your pawn is on your 5th rank and your opponent moves the allowed 2 spaces for the first move of a pawn. That's the only time that happens, and it goes for every pawn. Okay? But here's the clincher. If I don't take that pawn now, I move something else. Okay? And black moves something else. I can no longer do that. You see? We get the whistle blowing. I am no longer allowed. In other words, I have to decide on that move that black passed me. I have to decide right then and there on my move, on that move, to take in passant. After that, I lose that privilege, okay? Now, that goes for both sides. So I'm going to move something else. It's white's turn. And black is going to go here. So again, now, I know that says 4, but black is on his 5th rank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now, if you're playing white, you decide to do the same thing black did earlier. Again, black has the opportunity on this move, and this move only, to take you in passant. Okay? Of course, I can take back with this pawn, or I can take back with this pawn. Alright? But that's the point. The point is that if you are on your 5th rank, or if your opponent is on his 5th rank, and whichever one of you moves your pawn the 2 spaces, you still have the opportunity to capture that in passant, okay? Alright, so let's talk about castling now. Let's bring it all the way back. Okay. So now you know the special moves of pawns. Did I mention that pawns get promoted when you reach the back rank? No, I did not. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's not take that pawn. Let's be silly and not take that pawn. Okay. And black decides to take. White's rook moves out of the way. And black moves the pawn. It gets promoted. You see the symbol that comes up? I can get a queen, a rook, a bishop, or a knight. Of course it would be silly to get a bishop or a rook when the queen can do both jobs, but sometimes you also get a knight. Okay? And of course black is just going to take it. But anyway, there are your amazing moves for the pawn. Now let's talk about castling. Castling is only done once per game for each player. Castling is part of your development. Castling, generally speaking, brings the king to safety. You don't always castle, but most of the time, if you can, castle early. That's when you do the castling, is early in the game. So, how is castling done? As you know, the king usually only moves 1 space at a time, left, right, up, down. Of course, I can't go up now because the pawns are in the way. But castling, you pick up the king and move it 2 spaces. That's the only time a king gets to move 2 spaces. And in addition, you get to move 2 pieces. So castling is done by picking up the rook, by picking up the king first and moving 2 spaces to either side. This would be the queen side. Okay? And then you pick up the rook and move it to the other side of the king. And if you look at the top right of your screen, you can see that castling is notated by zeros. So castling queen side, or otherwise known as castling long, it's 0, 0, 0, right? Or 0, 0, 0. If I were to castle king side, it's just 2 zeros or 2 O's, okay? That's how castling is done. However, there are rules about castling. That is, there are times where you no longer have the right to castle. If at any time I had moved my king during the game, even if I move it back, I no longer have the privilege to castle. So let's say I just move a king, and I don't know, black castles king side, and silly me, I move it back again, and black moves something else. I don't know, maybe he moves a pawn. Now I decide, oh gee, I want a castle now. Nope, cannot do it. The coach's whistle blows, tells you not to, you can't do it. It's illegal. Okay? You cannot castle after you've moved your king, even if you moved it back. Okay? You also cannot castle on the side that you moved the rook. Okay? So later, if I wanted a castle, oh, it's black's turn. Black, I guess, castles. So I move it back, silly me. Black does something else. Now I try to castle on that side, and I cannot, because I moved the rook that I'm trying to castle the side on. However, I didn't move the king, and I didn't move the rook on the other side. So I can castle on that side. Okay? So far so good? I don't know what's going on with that. Okay. So, what are the rules about castling? You cannot castle if your king is being attacked. That is, if you're in check. If your king is being is directly in danger of being captured, which is called check. I didn't get to that yet. You also cannot castle if one of the squares that you're trying to cross is being attacked. So let's go ahead and, I'm not going to pause it. I'm just going to go ahead and change the board and let you see me doing it. Okay, so let's say we get rid of this pawn and give black a bishop. Okay, let's get rid of this pawn so that we can make that legal. Okay. Okay, it's telling me that it's, oh, all right. Okay, there we go. Okay. So, as you can see, and you remember how bishops move, as you can see, black's bishop is directly attacking white's king. We call that check. Okay? When you are in check, you must find a way to get out of check. If you can't, then it's checkmate, but you have to get out of check. Now, you know the rules of castling as far as moving the king. If I were to move my king out of check, and then later on, I lose my right to castle. See? But I cannot castle out of check. See? Cannot castle out of check. So, if I want to preserve my right to castle later on, what I could do is block the check. Okay? There you go. I am no longer in check. Now I'm attacking black's bishop. Say black just moves it out of the way. And now, if I wanted to, I can castle on either side. Okay? Okay? Okay. Now, let's say that I don't castle. Let's say, silly me, I decide to move a pawn up instead. Okay? I'm just trying to demonstrate something to you. Now, as you can see, black is attacking the G square. Okay? I cannot castle on that side. Oops. Okay, so black just does something else. Alright. I cannot castle on that side. I can castle on this side, but I cannot castle into check. So obviously I can't put myself in check. Okay? So far so good? Okay, now we're going to set up the board a little different. New position set up. Okay, so let's refix this. No, I'm going to leave that one there. We're going to put that one back, and we're going to make this, oops, we're going to make that a white square bishop. And we're going to put that over here. Okay? Okay. Excuse me. Excuse me 1 second. Okay. Now it's a little bit different. White is not in check. And white didn't move the king, and it did not move the rooks. However, the black bishop is controlling that square, the D square. If I wanted a castle on this side, I would have to pass over that square that black is controlling. I cannot do that. Okay? I still could castle on this side, but I cannot castle on that side. So, what we got so far is that you can castle as long as there's no pieces blocking either side. You've never moved your king. You've never moved the rook on the side that you want to castle on. You cannot castle out of check. You cannot castle past the square controlled by an opponent, so you can't castle through a check, so to speak. Okay? So far, so good? Okay. So, now what about pawns? I think I went through enough of that. Okay, so I went through the pawns move twice or once or I should say 2 squares or 1 square. I went through the en passant. I hope you understood the en passant. And I want to show you a game now. Okay, you know about castling, but the en passant and the pawn capture can be quite confusing. So I wanted to show you a game that actually shows the en passant move. Okay, this is a game. It's actually a Christmas game from 1928. Okay, and it starts off like any chess game. Okay, now see, notice that if he wanted to, he could have captured a pawn, but he decided to move up one and block the center. In other words, white is now locking the center down. Okay, and see now, that's how pawns capture, diagonally. Okay, black puts white in check. White moves the knight in the way. Okay, I'm going to go a little fast here. Okay, so white sacrifices the bishop by putting black in check. Black takes the bishop. White moves the knight, puts black in check. Remember, knights move diagonal. I mean, like an L shape. Okay, black has to get out of check. White protects the knight with the pawn. You notice that if white doesn't protect that knight, black can take it. But now white moves a pawn there, and pawns capture diagonally, so he's protecting his knight. Right? White pulls the queen out. Now, here's the first one. Remember what I said about the pawn being on the 5th rank. Okay? Black did move past the 5th rank pawn by moving 2 squares. Okay? That is an opportunity for white to take en passant. Okay? There's the first opportunity. Alright? But white does not do it this time. Instead, white moves a pawn up and puts black in check. Okay? Black king has to get out of check. And now, white takes a pawn anyway. And here is the second opportunity. Black, for some strange reason, decided to move another pawn past another 5th rank white pawn. Okay? He moved it 2 spaces. So, in one game, there is a second en passant opportunity. This time, white does take the pawn en passant. And here it goes. Alright? And that's checkmate, by the way. Because white's knight is guarding that square, so king can't go there. White's pawn is guarding that square, so the king cannot go there. The king cannot capture the pawn because of the queen. And black is already in check because white had moved the pawn out of the way, and white's rook, oops, is checking black's king. Okay, so black cannot get out of check. Black has to try, but he cannot. That is checkmate. But I just wanted to show you this game mainly for the to really solidly drill into you what en passant capturing by pawns are. Yes, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So there it is. 2 opportunities to capture en passant. The first one passed up, and the second one taken, and it's checkmate. Okay, that is the powerful en passant move. Okay. So I hope, and you notice I don't think anybody castled in this game, by the way. Oh yes, they did. Wait, let me see. They must have. Yeah, black did castle. Okay, there it is. Black did castle, but white never castled. So, all right. There you go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned from it. My next video should be, let me see, what can we cover on my next video? Maybe you have questions, you want to comment, any questions, maybe something that you didn't quite understand, or perhaps there's something I didn't cover enough. Anything, any comments at all? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? So please comment, please subscribe, and I want to thank the new subscribers that have subscribed. Keep on playing, and my next video, I haven't decided what it'll be yet. I think, well, we covered the pieces moving. I think we should cover some basic opening ideas. You know, the control of the center, developing and things like that. Maybe we'll review some of the things about how the pieces moved while we're doing that. Okay? So, keep on playing. Thank you for subscribing, whoever did. And please subscribe if you didn't.